Hi, I'm Andy Simpson-Pirri. I'm the CTO over at Cyberfort. So you can see me at the moment. Hi, but I've got merry messages flashing around my screen saying we've got network issues. So what I'm going to do is drop off the video so you can hear me clearly throughout the meeting. And if the messages fail to persist, which is great, I'll drop the video back on a bit later on. So I'm responsible for products and services and technology across the Cyberfort Group. I work very closely with Ian and with Gary on a number of go-to-market offers, but also a number of the key areas that we're talking around today.
Brilliant, thank you. No, I think Ian, a really good point actually. So let's start at the beginning really. So where does the term CyberNatter come from? You know, what is it all about? What we're trying to achieve?
Yeah, in the beginning. So really the intention, the concept, Gary, and I'm really kind of delighted that we're kind of relaunching this. The concept was really to kind of create an area, really a kind of a safe area where kind of like-minded cybersecurity professionals could come together. And one commitment I had to make very early on, Gary, as a sales guy, was I was absolutely prohibited from any kind of hard selling. And I think that then that then gives you a clue as to what we're trying to do. We're trying to pick up on relevant, topical areas within cybersecurity, and just kind of explore. You know, for us as a solution provider, you know, us to step out of our comfort zone where we maybe hide behind marketing phrases and kind of industry speak, kind of step out of the comfort zone and really engage with kind of like-minded professionals. And all of us have, I suppose, varying concerns about cybersecurity, maybe especially in current circumstances. And just explore together, you know, debate together, have a kind of a discussion, really kind of help each other and kind of drive at some maybe kind of valuable learning points on the topics that we cover. And I suppose the other key thing, Gary, is very much we don't want to be in the seat where we're kind of dictating what we talk about, but let's see how the discussion flows. Let's see what other topics folks want to explore in these regular sessions. So does that help you?
That's perfect. No, thank you for that. I think that's neatly sort of takes us on to the mainstay of this first virtual CyberNatter that we're having. In as much as, you know, internally we thought about what kind of topics we felt people would be interested in hearing about and talking about. Yep. And certainly from, you know, what we're hearing out in cyberspace and people are chattering about there. So some of this agenda is kind of being led by us, but absolutely in subsequent events, we do want to hear from everybody who's watching right now. Just what are your concerns? What are your issues? If there is something that you are particularly concerned about and you would like us to cover, then yeah, please do let us know. You can let us know on the Q&A or just drop us an email, whichever is easiest. Now, just in terms of the way that we're going to do this, as I said, because this is the first virtual CyberNatter, is we've got these topics. Rather than go around the call and get everybody to introduce themselves, because that could take us quite a bit of time. And people might be having things happening in the background and such. If you do feel compelled to join in with the conversation, please do take yourself off mute, chip in. We want to hear your voice. You know, this is not just meant to be a presentation by me and having input by other people. We want to hear your voices as well. So all we would just simply ask is, if you have a question or if you have a point to make, a point of view, please just take yourself off mute for a moment, introduce yourself, and you know, and then tell us what you think and give us a view of that. So I hope that's okay. I'll kind of pause slightly after each point and then move on slightly. I'll take silence as a yes, so that's great. Okay, so I'm going to give a bit of an overview of three key areas that we think are affecting businesses right now. So I'll refer to some notes that we made earlier, because I think it's important for us to cover, to have some structure to this. So in this first session, we're going to be discussing some really important topics on, I think, on everybody's minds right now, this idea of secure remote working, paying particular attention to things such as domestic technology that people are using, which weren't designed for office use. And what can you do to ensure that consistency of security? So we've got some views, but ideally we'll hear from you. How are you approaching that particular issue? We're a month into lockdown now. Time goes by so quickly. Many businesses know that there is no alternative to working from home. However, these platforms that we're using, there's a lot of this domestic technology, and it's simply not designed to operate in a professional setting. So you need to think about, the difference between your business network and your home network. So you'll need to know exactly what does that mean and what's the impact. The second sort of area that I'm really interested, and we're really interested to hear your views on, is keeping on top of data protection and also the ICO. What information are we hearing from the ICO? We're hearing a lot of rumours on social media about what the ICO is saying and isn't saying. So, keeping on top of data protection, how do you do it? How do you keep get away from these myths from the ICO? There's also been some unfortunate rumours regarding this data protection in terms of what it means from a GDPR point of view. So we're here to set the record straight, but we want to hear your views on this. What are you hearing? Maybe you've heard something different from what you're going to hear from us. We've got these concerns around hefty fines around GDPR and such, but phishing attacks and cyber criminals, they're on the increase. So, in this dispersed network and office space that we have, this office environment. So, with remote working becoming the new norm, if you like, cyber criminals are taking advantage. They are opportunistic, and they are using this opportunity to cause some serious damage to us as individuals, but us also in business. We've seen an uptake in malicious activity during this period. We know that, and I would hope you'll have heard some of these stories that are going on social media, and you're hearing some of the statistics that are coming out from action fraud and such. So we just need to understand individually and collectively what we can do to protect ourselves. So we're here to help, absolutely. Ian said it absolutely right at the beginning. We're not here to sell Cyberfort services. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do and such. But this is just an opportunity to share experiences and thoughts. So your input is as valid as anybody else's from Cyberfort's. But, we're not here to sell services, so please bear that in mind. Be respectful of everyone else on this call. It's about a knowledge transfer. That's really key for what we're trying to do. So, kind of setting the scene, they're the kind of three core elements, if you like, of what we're going to be talking about. And so we're going to start at the beginning, I think. We're going to start with this idea about remote working and putting the spotlight on that area. So I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts about this idea of domestic technology that's not designed for office use, that is suddenly now being used for that reason. What can we do to ensure cybersecurity, the consistency that we would normally enjoy if we were in the office environment. So I'm going to ask people to unmute themselves if they wish and have some input. So remote working is a great way to produce productivity or to continue productivity if implemented correctly. So people's thoughts, please. I'm interested.
Hi, Gary. Can you hear me? It's Alex Fitzpatrick here.
Hello, Alex. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm from the charity sector, and I noticed that you're using Zoom. What are we're a counselling organisation in the charitable sector, and we're using Teams at the moment to provide digital online counselling to young people. And we've heard some bad things about Zoom, which is why we're using Teams. From everybody's viewpoint, what would be the issues with particular platforms, and is there any that are more secure than any others?
Okay, I have an opinion on that, but has anybody else got an opinion? Any other thoughts? Anybody else like to input on this?
I suppose, Gary, this is Ian. Yeah, we've all heard the horror stories, haven't we, about Zoom bombs, I think they're described as.
Yeah, Zoom bombing, yeah. Okay, so does anybody else have any thoughts around whether Zoom is an appropriate, if I'm understanding you, Alex, in terms of whether it's an appropriate platform for the kind of services that you offer?
Absolutely, and I think there's an issue for us, particularly around the kind of very sensitive information that children, young people, and families would be sharing online, and whether there's a particular platform. As I say, we're using Teams at the moment, but I think counsellors find Zoom easier, so it's just that question, really.
Okay, so I will, because I do a bit of work, well, quite a bit of work with counsellors and psychotherapists. So my view around this is that, well, first of all, there's no such thing as 100% secure. All platforms will have some element of insecurity, if they aren't configured in the right way. So Zoom is no different to any other platform in that regard. It's a commercial application. Zoom also has a much more expensive version of I think it's called Zoom Healthcare, which gives you a demonstration that if they have got a separate platform for healthcare than they have for everyday use, like the one that we're using today, it tells you there is a disparity there. In terms of the real issue around Zoom is that there's been a rush to use this technology, particularly in your sector where very little training has been provided for online therapy.
Yeah.
I think there's issues in terms of privacy beyond cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is about setting up the system in a secure fashion, so you can't be Zoom bombed. So that means ensure that when you join, you do your therapy or your sessions like this, you lock it down so no one can join after the event.
Right.
The invite out within a very short space of time to reduce the chances of someone taking it and using it. And importantly, that quite often these things are recorded into the cloud, and no one knows quite where the cloud is. The cloud just means somebody else's computer. And there have been a number of reported incidents recently where recordings have been found on the web or on the dark web. So there is a number of privacy issues. That's the key issue here. It's for your industry, it's around privacy. Teams offers a certain level of security, but again, it's a commercial system. It allows you to, the information is going to be monitored because it has Microsoft, by Microsoft, it's going to be sitting on several different servers. You're not quite sure about the levels of encryption that's on there. There's a lot of issues around it. I think it's about the appropriateness. I know particularly for your sector, there's a number of much more secure platforms that can be used. Again, for anybody on here, there's Signal, there's Wire, but they're not as easy to use as Zoom.
Yeah.
My question is to your industry is, and has been over recent weeks and months, is what's wrong with the telephone?
Well, we are doing telephone as well.
Right.
And we just want to be able to offer that. The issue for us, particularly in terms of counselling, is that if you are providing therapy for somebody, you can actually see their body language, you can see their expression, and they can build, a virtual kind of relationship with you better. But interestingly, you know, this is something we were looking to develop anyway. But interestingly, having been forced into doing this really quickly, we're offering the phone and the video, and far more young people are taking up the option of phone.
Yeah.
So that's been quite interesting for us.
Wow.
And especially for children and young people who are on the spectrum in some way, because they find that distance and that you know, slightly being divorced from who they're speaking to, they find that really comforting. So absolutely, we're offering both, and we are getting more people coming by phone. But it's just for those people who want to do the video, just trying to make sure it's as secure as possible.
Okay, thank you. Andy, have you got some thoughts around this?
Yeah, I thought I'd just add my comments to this. So I think irregardless, I concur with Gary. I think all platforms have great strengths and all platforms do have a number of flaws, and technology evolves hourly, not even daily these days, it's hourly. So the flaws in Teams today may not exist tomorrow. The flaws in Zoom today may not exist tomorrow. So I would focus more on how you configure, set up and maintain the system and platform to make sure that you've got a good operating platform that everybody can use. And I'd echo a few of the comments that have been circulated already from both of you guys, actually. So the first thing is ease of use. If it's not easy to use and it's not integrated, people just won't use it properly, and you won't have the level of uptake that you really need to make this thing a viable product. Teams and Zoom are both immensely easy to use. I mean, Zoom has come up from the consumer world into the business world very, very successfully. And Teams is actually just Skype. Microsoft have used the technology behind Skype and turned it into more of a business and corporate focused product, but it's the same technologies, it's the same ease of use, which is brilliant for both of them. And there are other platforms. So ease of use is critical for me. And then I completely agree with you actually in terms of video communication. So I find the level of interaction goes through the roof when you enable video. So in a past life, I was the CTO over a global insurance company. We did a huge study around how we could improve our interaction both internally and with our customers. And as you can imagine, your customers all around the world in every different sector with all sorts of different problems, from life affecting major problems to slightly lower down the scale, such as, I don't know, the electrics in a house don't work, for example. They need to talk to somebody for advice. And I agree with you, being able to have that face-to-face conversation really added to that level of interaction. It really did. And we built up a scale of sort of nothing to telephone calls to video and instant messaging to face-to-face meetings. And whereas face-to-face meetings is really the nirvana, that where you really want to be getting to, in situations where people are dispersed and all over the world, video is the second best. And I completely agree. It's second to none in terms of collaboration. That's it, when the network actually holds up, which we'll go into a bit later on in the discussion.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think you know, it's a difficult one, Alex, in terms of, and I think this is true of everybody, not just within your sector. You know, it's that, you know, you want to be physically present if you can be, and video is a great way of doing that. But one of the interesting things for your industry as well is that with this rush to suddenly use a technology which previously perhaps hasn't been used, is that you know, you're inviting people into your home, and it's, you know, quite often you're seeing information around you. So the area that you're in, you can see. You can see that Andy's used a, you know, great tool of Teams and Zooms. You know, both have this capability of masking your background, but few people know that feature exists. Now, I purposely not included that because, you know, I wanted to have the information behind me fully visible to everyone here. And the reason behind that is that information on there is I did my risk assessment before coming online. Now, just so for everyone's knowledge, the information behind me rather, is just my workout regime for the weeks that I've been in self-isolation, and that's it. But I have been on conference calls, very professional conference calls with lawyers and with software houses and various other people. And I'm suddenly invited into a room that perhaps, you know, behind them, it tells me more about that individual than maybe they want me to know. But I can infer certain things because I've now been invited into their home.
Yeah.
And that safety of the physical presence, your own, you know, so your online therapy room, your online office, you need to think very carefully about that. And I don't think people are. Again, I don't know your thoughts on that, and if anyone else has any views around that.
We follow the BACP guidance in terms of that, and I think a lot of our therapists are part-time and do private work and have their own therapy rooms anyway. But it is kind of crucial. But thinking the other way around, if you can see the room that your client is sitting in, you'll get a lot more clues about their background as well and issues that they may have. So no, I was watching the TV this morning and they had Matt Hancock on there and his lovely office with all the pictures of his his school photos from various public schools. You can infer a lot, yes.
You can, yeah. I don't know, has anyone else got any thoughts around this idea about domestic technology not being, you know, and technology means the software that, you know, Alex has mentioned as well. You know, Zoom has suddenly been thrust into the limelight. You know, everyone's using it.
Yeah, Gary. I mean, one of the things that's come up in terms of discussions is the control of the technology that you've got out there in the client's environment, not the client, but the individual user's environment. Anecdotally, just before full lockdown, I was in the local IT supermarket large shop, and because I wanted to get myself a new web camera because I thought video would become more of a primary requirement. Wanted a good quality camera, not just the one on the laptop. And one of the things that was related to me was a huge raft of buying of laptops. So, you know, one of the key things we talk about in IT, in security terms is making sure you have control of those standards. And I always wondered what your views were in terms of, you know, bring your own device or buy your own device, bring your own device in terms of use in that remote, dispersed environment, because you're not having the control of what your systems and applications being used. You don't have control necessarily of the network infrastructure, of the devices that are attached. You know, printers, for instance, you don't know what's being printed. You don't know if they're you know, years ago, I know, or a few years ago, people were able to get hacks in through those unsecured wireless attached devices. I think that's less so nowadays, but are these things, I think these are things that we have to consider.
I think it's a really good question. So let me put it to people who are on the call. Perhaps we've got somebody on the call who has had to rush out and buy laptops or printers or devices or something, subscribe to something that previously they didn't have to. I don't know. Let's see if there's anyone out there who has done that. Has anyone got any experience beyond Ian on that one? Perhaps.
Yeah, it's Alex back here again.
Hi, Alex.
Oh yeah. No, we had just got funding to get new IT kit because it was all incredibly old and running on Windows 7, which is scary. But we had to get laptops very quickly to be able to allow our counsellors to work from home, and the prices just rocketed, absolutely rocketed. We did it through our IT provider, so you know, we got them set up as securely as possible. But in terms of the price of, you know, I don't know what it's like for other pieces of kit, to be able to make sure that our counsellors weren't using their own personal stuff that might be far less secure we had to go out and buy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that's happened a number of occasions. Certainly, somebody that I worked with right at the brink of the lockdown, literally on the Friday before, they rushed out and bought, I think it was like 6 laptops, but they brought these laptops that had private or personal usage licenses on them for the software, but they weren't fit for purpose for what they needed. But they just rushed out and just bought these things, and it's because needs must when the devil drives, I think is the saying. And it's sad to hear that people were increasing or have increased the prices due to this current crisis and such. But I think you're always going to find that, unfortunately. But it's an interesting one in terms of the this what Ian said there, which is the if you like, the attack surface is now broadened because we have now put these devices into our homes that are doing commercial things and expected to have accounting systems installed on them or printers and such, which aren't being configured by not the normal IT crowd, but being configured by individuals who perhaps aren't securing them in the right way. So I think the issue there, I think, is that we are increasingly going to start to see where people are having insecure devices in their homes. We know that's happening, and using platforms which possibly aren't right for the purposes that they were intended, maybe, or they're being used for in different ways. Which, if you don't mind, I'm going to come on to the next kind of discussion point. Unless anyone else has anything else they want to say, I'd like to go on to the next point, actually, because I think it's a good point to move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Gary, you used a bit of jargon there, talking about the attack surface.
Yeah, the attack surface sorry if that was jargon, but the attack surface is getting larger, as in, the bad guys out there, the potential for risk and for breaches and for cyber attackers, if you like, is increasing because there's more devices, because suddenly thousands of people have had to go out and buy laptops or printers, or they've updated equipment that previously was old and aging and such, and now it's updated. Yeah. It's now part of the Internet of Things, the IoT. So suddenly, the criminals, rather than having 20 billion devices to attack, they've now got 30 billion devices to attack. And that is the attack surface. So the attack surface gets bigger, and therefore the opportunity for a breach occurring, or for hackers to get into your systems, also increases. Does that explain that? Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, before we move on, could I just add a couple of two seconds?
Yeah, of course.
So I spent a lot of time in my career looking at providing the best technology equipment to the people at the right time. And what we've been talking about in terms of bring your own device isn't actually a new concept. It's been around for many, many years. And we talked about it as the consumerization of IT many, many years ago, where technology at home, actually the pace of change increased and far surpassed what you could get in the office. So people were wanting to use their own stuff that they bought at home for business purposes, because the perception was that was better and they were getting a better service. We looked at bring your own device, and there's another concept called pick your own device as well, which is the sort of hybrid between the company owned and the personal owned device. So company owned device, it tends to be very locked down, very limited, a very small set of standards. Quite inflexible, and the user experience isn't great, so people tend to moan about it and they don't use it in the best, most dynamic ways they can do. Bring your own device, extremely flexible. They can install whatever they want on it to a fashion and use it however they want, but there are quite large security risks associated. And then in the middle, you've got this pick your own device, where you essentially give an asset catalog or a device catalog to your users and say, here's a bunch of devices, a bunch of laptops, phones, whatever, pick from this. And what that does, that actually enables your people to be able to feel that they've been empowered to select the device or the laptop or whatever that best fits their need for the business, and blur the line with their home life, but also enables you to remain and keep that level of security posture in place. So it's worth, I guess, taking a step back. And I know we're in the COVID-19 pandemic situation where everybody has had to rush to market very quickly to be able to react. I would say, if you get 5 minutes, and I know that's a difficult thing to say at this time, take a step back and reflect on what actually the people within your business need, and what sort of strategies and frameworks can you put in place to be able to support those people. And it's not just security, it's all around network resilience, technology resilience, accessories. Do they need webcams? Do they need all of the other things that people don't tend to think about when they go and buy a laptop, for example? Hopefully that's useful.
Yeah, no, that's
Gary, can I just sorry, Dave Parnaby here. Can I just follow up on that, Gary? And
sure.
In terms of we spent a lot of time this morning talking about technology and the suitability and the fit for purpose of home technology. And I think one of the things for me that and you alluded to it actually in a LinkedIn article last week, is what is our planning process been for this? And clearly it's been lacking because of the fact that many thousands of people have had to dash out at the last minute and buy things that aren't fit for purpose. And I think this is a big lesson for all of us in that we should have been not pointing, as a colleague of mine said, not pointing at the IT man to say, what's your plan for business continuity? It's about all of us understanding what that plan for business continuity is, because those home laptops may be quite well suited for doing a small subset of the work that you're doing. And we're all assuming that what we do at home has to be exactly the same as what we do in the office. And that's not necessarily the case if we've got a proper plan in place to say, when you're working at home, you can do an effective subset of your normal office regime, but on a smaller scale or on a more limited device. But that means that we need to understand things like our risk appetite and, more importantly, our risk tolerance for when things aren't going quite as they should be.
I completely agree. I mean, we're going into the world there of what I call true business continuity, where you're looking. We've talked about business impact analysis and assessments for many years, and I'm not going to go down that deep into that route. But you're absolutely right. It's about assessing the risk and really saying, what would be the impact if we couldn't operate for a week, a month, 6 months, and then what does a tailed back service look like? And I guess before moving on to the next point, I think just to finish on that is just to say, if you haven't done that already, later today we believe the Chancellor is going to explain what the next 2 or 3 weeks are going to look like. So we need to be asking ourselves as individuals and as businesses. So it doesn't matter if you're a sole trader all the way through to some of our clients who maybe thinking, well, what does the next 6 weeks look like for me and my 100, 200, 300 staff and such? We should be starting to put those thoughts in place, or those plans in place, and putting some thought into it. Because if you allow me just to move on to the next topic, I think, one of the issues that we have, or the concerns, not issues, sorry, the concerns that I have personally, and I'm happy for someone to tell me that I'm wrong, is that we're going to start to see a slew of data breaches and cyber attacks impacting individuals who can currently, ill afford to have these things happen. So how do we keep on top of data protection? What are we doing around have we implemented any new controls around data protection? Have we communicated to our business about data protection and cyber security and such? Again, I'm opening that up to everyone on the CyberNatter. What's your thoughts? Are you concerned about data protection now? Has it taken a back seat? What do you think?
So
My view,
Gary,
Gary, we should absolutely be concerned about data protection, even more so, you know, than we have been in a commercial setting. You know, we've got that comfort blanket when we're in the office of all of the protections, you know, potentially. You know, physical security, lockable filing cabinets, all of those nice things that come with an office environment. And as you mentioned earlier on, you know, the fact that you need to be careful about what's written on whiteboards behind you. You know, the Prime Minister's already fallen foul of having a Zoom meeting ID presented to the BBC on a Facebook snap. So I think we should be even more cautious about data protection issues at the present time.
Yeah, thank you. Andy, would you like to come in now?
Yeah, no, just another discussion topic actually to build in is a lot of people have asked me, will the ICO, for example, provide any sort of leniency in this situation? You mentioned a slew of risk, a slew of potential breaches coming in. And a lot of customers, a lot of people will just be saying, actually, you know what, guys, we're maxed out. We've got so much to do. Cybersecurity is not on the top of our list, and of course we say yes, it should absolutely be on the top of your list, and we should absolutely be putting it to the forefront of the conversation. But I know a lot of people are asking me about, you know, will we be let off? Will we have some form of leniency with what the Information Commission's office brings to us? What do you think, Gary?
Just adding to that, Andy. Gary, do you know, have there been any formal statements from the ICO?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I you know, for want of giving helpful advice here, you know, following the this CyberNatter, go and Google ICO and COVID-19, and they have issued a white paper, which it will be helpful, and it will clarify a number of situations. But yeah, the ICO, you're right, Andy, in terms of this issue around people saying, you know, so this is the myth, I guess, that I was talking about earlier, this myth busting that people have said to me as well as you, that, well, the ICO are going to be lenient, so if I have a breach, it's not a problem. That's not the case. What they've actually said is that they'll be lenient around some of the processes involved in your obligations to GDPR. So for instance, you have currently under GDPR, you have an obligation to inform of a data breach within 72 hours. If you don't do it within 72 hours, you know, pre-COVID-19, they would look at you very sternly and want to know why you haven't informed them. But the likelihood is now they'll say, well, you know, you've probably had a lot on your plate, so we're going to forgive you. Also, in you know, another part of GDPR, it talks about subject access requests. And if somebody says, I want you to give me all the information you hold on me, because that's my right, you have 1 month to comply. Now, if it takes you longer because everybody's working disparately, or because the files are physically in a cabinet in the office and you can't physically get there, then the ICO are going to say, well, we understand that. You couldn't possibly fulfill that obligation. But let's be really clear about this. They are not saying that if you have a data breach, that they're going to be lenient on you because you've sent all your staff home to use laptops, you know, commandeer the children's laptop or their iPads to do work that really you should have either thought about in the run up to this, or that you should have already been able to respond to in a more secure fashion. So, you know, that's kind of the myth busting part, really. The rumors that we're hearing is that people are saying, well, you know, they're not going to find me. Yeah, I can't put any better than that. They will still, you know, they may not find you, but there'll certainly be sanctions and such that they will still investigate you. They will, as they always have, they will look at what you did before the incident. They will look at you when the incident occurred and said, what did you do once you knew it had happened? And what are you going to do to prevent it happening again? So this is why I think it's important for us all just to not be just putting data protection and security back burner, because it needs a little bit more attention. Yes, Georgina.
Yeah, I think you mentioned on the webinar, I think it could have been last week, that Action Fraud had reported a 400% increase in cyber frauds. And if that is the case, I don't think any board can justify not reassessing the risk and not taking action on it. And therefore, I think the ICO are completely justified in that respect.
I would agree. And in correction of that statistic, as of the 5th of April, the official stats now stand at 557%.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is an evolving situation. For those who aren't aware of that statistic, Action Fraud have essentially are the organisation that, if you have a breach, you know, you should inform the you should inform the ICO. But if you are suffer a cyber attack, that you inform Action Fraud. That's the part of the police that will investigate. But also, very importantly, they collect statistics around the different kinds of frauds that are occurring and the impact. And at this time, I think the largest they've had is it was 105,000. That's now gone up to, I think, a mandate fraud of £240,000 that was transferred into another person's bank account. So when people, going back to that principal point, that, you know, will the ICO go lenient on me? Well, no, but that's not the people to be worried about. The people who aren't going to be lenient are the cyber attackers and those people out there that are going to do us ill, because the, you know, phishing and cyber attacks are increasing. So hopefully everybody on this CyberNatter will agree that awareness around these things is absolutely paramount. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys, really, and just ask you a question. You know, what are you doing to raise awareness? And it's going to be my final question before, you know, we do a bit of a Q&A session. Andy, would you like to come in at that point?
Just one additional sentence to what you've been talking around, Gary, is a lot of people that talk to me think they're on their own, and they think they have all of these challenges, and cyber's this big thing that they don't really understand, and that there is a lot of risk, and there are a lot of penalties associated with it, both with ICO matters, but also the people that are actually trying to hack into you. I think the key thing to think about is the processes, policies and procedures that you guys have implemented and what you need to reassess and look at, but also breach support. What happens in the event that something does happen? What happens in the event that something does go wrong? What can you do? Who can you lean on to actually help you with that answer? Who can best help you to get the news out to your customers, your people, your partners, your suppliers, and work with you to make sure you can minimize the fallout as best you can, because nobody is 100% secure. These things are becoming rife. Gary's cited some quite scary, I've got to be quite honest, some quite scary figures, but absolutely nobody is alone in this. Just make sure that you've got the 3 Ps, processes, policies, procedures, and your support in place, and, you know, you're in a very good place, and you're probably in a better place than a lot of people are.
No, I think I would agree with that. I mean, does anybody else got any thoughts around that?
Just a quick one from me, Gary. Just in many conversations with our various clients, I think one theme that comes over very powerfully to answer your question is around culture. You know, I've seen clients working really hard to introduce cultures where it's no longer a them and us issue in terms of keeping things secure, but everyone's a stakeholder. Everyone has their part to play, and there's leading from the front, a kind of a top-down kind of need from C-level. Yeah, security is a common thing that all of us have our part to play.
I think I would completely agree with that, Ian. I had a chat to Ian Stoddart yesterday, but we were talking there at length about how the importance of culture and how really the human firewall is a cultural piece. The network firewall is something that IT can address in conjunction with the board and how much they want to spend. But there is so much of it that's related to culture in terms of making sure that everyone aware that everyone poses a risk and everyone is a point of protection.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, Georgina. And there's this concept that people talk about, people hacking or social engineering. And not a lot of people will like me for saying this, but one of the biggest risks to the business are the people within the business. from internal and external threats. And you're absolutely right. It's about setting the culture within the organisation to make sure everybody understands how to best protect themselves and the organisation, and also what to do in the event of a problem. And it's
And all the risks as well.
It's not an IT problem. It's everybody in the business has to be aware of this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. No, it's an interesting point, and that kind of neatly sort of, I'm going to summarise, I guess, in some respects what you just talked about there is, you know, it's a leadership. It's about leadership. It's about having strong leadership and good leadership at these times. It's about having an open culture that, you know, if somebody does click on a link whilst they're sat working at home and something doesn't look right, or something happens, that they understand who it is that they need to speak to, and that they don't feel they're going to get blamed. There's no blame culture. That the culture is one of wrapping its arms around this very broad team now that's working remotely, to protect them and to protect the business and protect their families and make sure that they are all you know, cared for. So I think, you know, it's an interesting one, that we've come back to a point of something I often say is, when people talk about statistics about 55, you know, it's gone up by 557% in terms of cyber breaches and such. What we've got to remember is bad people using good technology for bad things against good people. It's about people. And, you know, we hear about large statistics in terms of cybercrime and data breaches and such, but it's people's data. It affects people. And this coronavirus, if it's done nothing, it's taught us that we need people around us. We need to get support from people. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to reinvigorate CyberNatter, really, is to broaden the conversation out and get people on a call and to discuss things that concern them. So I'm going to open it up to you guys now and just simply say, is there anything else in the last couple of minutes what you would like to discuss, or any closing thoughts?
Hi, it's Robin Brown from Stevens here. I had one quick point. At the very beginning of the call, we talked about a home network versus a work network. And in my experience, the video and voice conference calls have worked better with everyone in a distributed network than in offices. And you know, so just playing to the cybersecurity angle on that, yes, the attack plane is wider, but to some degree also the target is less rich on an individual basis. So what is the impact of remote working on that kind of more edge use of networking, and does that kind of broader, less attractive target, as they're all individual, promote more security? And maybe it's the topic for the next one. We're kind of slightly running out of time, but a quick view would be very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else like to take that before I submit an answer? Andy?
I'll let you answer in terms of cybersecurity, but Robin, you're absolutely right, is that using home networks and home infrastructure actually decreases the capacity load on the corporate infrastructure. So whereas you've got a huge amount of people trying to use quite limited resources in an office, in London, for example, when everybody's dispersed and traveling or mobile or at home or whatever, it actually spreads out the capacity needs of the IT service. And with the use of cloud technology, such as Office 365 and Teams and Zoom, it actually further pushes that out, because, so for example, I'm not connected in any way, shape or form to the Cyberfort Group network for this call. I'm connected directly to Zoom. So that by proxy further reduces the capacity and the load on the infrastructure. So the end result is a better performing, with present case network exceptions excluded, a better performing service to you and your people. And I'll hand over to Gary in terms of the cyber side of things.
Yeah, I think, Robin, I think it's a really great question, and I'm sorry we didn't discuss it earlier when we were talking about the remote aspects of using devices and such. But there's two terms which I've used in the past, and it just came to mind when you were just talking there. There's a phrase used often is security through obscurity. So meaning that you obscure something, so something's hidden. It doesn't look like it's a secure thing, and it can be hidden around a big network. But this is almost went into security by diversity, because we've diversified and we're using different platforms, different systems and such. But essentially, the reason why I think there is an increased risk is because of that attack plane, that attack surface has broadened, and people are using systems, using laptops that have got Windows 7 on them, and using laptops that don't have antivirus software on them, but still using networks, but still then connecting that system to a corporate network, or that system to a Dropbox, or using Gmail when they might have used a different sort of email system back in the office. So it has forced us to be less secure. Are the prizes still worth picking? Yeah, absolutely. So we're still going to see corporate networks being targeted. And my final piece of advice around all of this, I guess, is it comes back to that previous point. It's about people. So if there's one piece of advice I would give anyone, is just keep on that cybersecurity awareness and training. Whilst people are working remotely, they need this probably more than ever. We all know that people used to get bored sat in the office, having to do that 1 hour's training per year. Well, now is a real important time to share some statistics and information and guidance around appropriate use of technology and such. I think that's kind of how I would summarize it. Yeah, Andy?
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing to that. Is a lot of people see training as something they have to do, and they really can't be bothered with it, and it's something that HR dishes out on them, and it's quite widespread. But in reality, some of the training can bring a huge amount of knowledge and insight to both the way the organisation works, but also how it can make each person's day-to-day work better and more productive, and give them more motivation, really. So the other thing to consider on top of the cyber topic is how can you train and help educate your users and your people in a different way, in a way that will get them to participate in this initiative a bit more, other than thinking it's just some other bit of training.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you ever so much for everybody who came on today. If you do have any questions or comments, we're here to help. This is the first of many CyberNatters that we will be running. I'd like to finish on time, so thanks ever so much. We are interested in your feedback. We'd love to know what topics you'd like to talk about next time. But until now, on behalf of Andy, Ian, myself, and Jenna, and the rest of the Cyberfort team, stay well, stay safe, and stay at home. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks ever so much. All the best.